Ezra Firestone on the Kelly Roach Show today, and I am so excited, Ezra, to have you here and to dig into your journey, the value that you've brought to 100 and some thousand people around the world with the work that you've done. So, Ezra, welcome to the show. I'm so happy that you're here.
Really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And for people that are just getting to know Ezra, he's been a leading voice, especially in the e-commerce world, built multiple 7 and 8 figure companies, has influenced and impacted so many people around the globe in this space, but also is really well known for this people over profits mentality, which I personally love. I know you have over 100 employees and culture is just so important. So let's just kind of like unpack a little bit your journey. Where did it start and kind of what does it look like today for you?
Yeah. Well, it started on a hippie commune, which is where I grew up,
I
which
love
is,
it.
an unconventional alternative lifestyle model that, was a really wild place to grow up and also exposed me to some ideas such as this people over profit
Mhm.
concept that have really served me in business, and
For sure.
um, I think that a happy team is a winning team. And I think that,
Yes.
hey, we all want to be successful. We all want to grow. And that includes all of your employees. They want to experience career growth and they want to know that they have an opportunity for agency and autonomy and their own ability to grow as human beings and also as individuals who earn money. And so, one of my sort of claims to fame is, and this is kind of a funny story. I did a talk. I have a mastermind, e-commerce mastermind. It's got 100 brands in it. Average brand size like 30 million. You got some brands that are like 400 million or whatever. I was doing this talk and it was, hey, I've been a CEO for 18 years now. I have 180 team members across 4 brands. I do maybe 70 or 80 million a year in revenue. I don't have a college education. I didn't start with any money. I grew up poor, whatever. I'm just like, so your traditional entrepreneurial path. And I had never had a single person in 18 years leave or quit one of my companies, period, because they were unhappy. There was some conflict we couldn't resolve. They weren't paid enough. Now, I have fired people for
Yeah,
stealing or, doing nefarious stuff,
for sure.
but I've never had anyone quit. So I gave that whole presentation. A week later, I lost 5 people. So I now can't give that presentation anymore. But I think it's still a unique thing to hold a group
Yeah.
of people together for that long. And just to go to your original question, like, where did I start? Well, I got into internet marketing, which is kind of what we're doing here back in 2005. I moved to New York City at 18 to play poker for a living. And I was on the New York City underground. So I wasn't 21. I couldn't play anywhere legal. So I had to be
Yeah.
on the underground clubs. And I met a guy who was a life coach. And now there's relationship coaches, health coaches, business coaches.
Yeah.
Coaching is a concept that has really penetrated the
Yeah.
mainstream. Well,
Yeah.
back then, nobody had heard of this, right? And he had brought coaching over from Australia. He was one of the founders of the International Coaching Federation, and he was selling digitally delivered ebooks and actually big giant DVD sets all the way back then
Yeah.
on how to start a coaching business. And he was using search engine optimization, which is like basically back in 2005,
Yeah.
the only way to get visibility. There was no YouTube, there was no social media,
Yeah.
there was no Facebook. It was just people searching on Google.
Sure.
And so he had grown the largest audience of life coaches in the world at that time. He was, there's now Mind Valley is one of the big. So Vision at Mind Valley hadn't even started yet. When he did start, he was our affiliate. He was small, we were big. And so I took over this guy's business in 2005. I ran the marketing for that until 2009, doing, webinars, sales pages, email marketing, because the only thing you could do was email somebody.
Yeah.
That was the only communication point you had between a brand was a group of emails. And through that, I learned all about e-commerce and internet marketing. And, I decided that it was a really wonderful business. However, at one point he burned out, didn't want to do it anymore. The business was based only on him. Once you didn't have the person who was the head of it anymore, it kind of floundered.
Yeah.
And I thought, what I want to do is sell people stuff that they will use. Because the sad little secret about information selling, which I, by the way, sell information to this day and I believe in it, but there is one problem, which is very few people actually use the information they buy from you or even consume the information they buy from you. So that's how I found my way to physical products. And I was America's #1 Afro wig, Elvis wig, mullet wig, clown wig, Cindy Lou Who wig retailer on the internet from 2008 to 2012. I've been basically in e-commerce ever since. I've done a whole bunch of other stuff, but I'm sort of famous for one brand in particular, which is called Boom Beauty. It's done about 200 million in sales in the last 10 years, and it's the #1 skincare and cosmetics company for women over 50 in America right now. And that's kind of like my main case study as a brand that I generally share, but I have other e-commerce businesses and I have software, and I've kind of like grew up in this industry and sort of before, and I'll stop rambling in a second, but I started blogging in 2012. It was like when mommy blogs had come around, and I
Yeah.
was like really interested in this e-commerce stuff. And so I started talking about it, and there was nobody else who was
Yeah.
doing it. And so I was the only voice, and I was not the best voice. I wasn't any smarter than anyone. I just was the only one. And so Shopify picks me up, and a bunch of these other brands picked me up, and I sort of became the default influencer creator before those were words in the e-commerce space. And I like to talk. And so I enjoyed that. And I made courses and I spoke on stages, and I've kind of have maintained that side business of being somebody who shares my journey in e-commerce with the world and then has other offerings related to that. First and foremost and core, what I do is physical product e-commerce businesses where I make my own products and sell them on the internet. That's kind of my thing.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's so interesting, the evolution of online marketing, isn't it? I haven't been in probably as long as you have, but I've definitely, I started my first company online in 2012. Now I'm more in the
That's an
service-based world.
OG.
Yeah, but like it's very interesting, and I find that many of those old school things are kind of resurfacing now with the importance of email list building, with the importance of the opt-ins and all of those things where like they were like it. Like I remember when I first started in online marketing, that was everything, right? And then it kind of merged into all these different things, and it now is like swinging back to the other way. But what I would love to dig into for a second, Ezra, is, so we have a lot of business owners that run service-based businesses that listen to this show, and many of them have a dream of launching an e-commerce business, a product-based business. And from my periphery, and I have a very small retail company as well, I think e-commerce is actually a lot more complex and much more difficult than a service-based business. That's my perspective. I have 5 companies in the service world, 1 in the retail space. I think retail is much harder. So if you were to think about giving your best advice from where you sit today to someone that would be entering that market, what would be some of the top do's and some of the top don'ts that are like the fatal mistakes to stay away from?
Let's unpack. So I love that. I love your vantage point on this. Let's look at services business, software business, coaching, speaking,
Yeah.
author, and physical products, right?
Yeah.
My viewpoint is that in order to have a business go well, you need 3 things. You need good marketing, which is simply just like letting people know that
Yeah.
you exist and then
Yeah.
convincing them to say yes to whatever it is you have to sell.
Yeah.
And that is sort of the same level of difficulty for any business,
Yeah.
other than with services, you get the benefit of generally you're selling a higher ticket. You sell a service once
Yes.
and it's 2 grand a month or 5 grand a month or 10 grand a
Exactly.
month. You're stoked because so you don't need as many people in the services
Yeah.
business. So I would agree with you. Marketing is easier there. However, the downside of services is it tends to be a smaller audience, right? I can sell
Yeah.
my skin cream to any woman over 50 in America. You can
Yeah.
only sell your business services to the 200,000 business owners or 2 million business owners.
It's
So
true.
the audience tends to be smaller, but they're spending a lot more with you. So I would agree.
Yeah.
Marketing is a little easier for services. Customer support is easier for e-commerce because so the other pillar is like you need people to be happy with you. That is email, chat, follow
Yeah.
up. And that's also how you get them to come back, right? If you do really good service.
100%.
So with e-commerce, it's like answering questions about the product, giving
Yeah.
refunds. With services, it's like high level knowledge work. Customer support's hard to serve.
Exactly. Super
Product.
custom tailored, expensive to deliver.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the level of knowledge worker, and this is not meant to be a determination of someone's value. It's just a description of the difficulty of the knowledge work. The level of the knowledge worker of a services business customer support person versus an e-commerce customer person. E-commerce is simpler knowledge work. It's
Oh,
refunds. It's
absolutely. Yeah.
okay. Then there's
Yep.
product, and product is pretty difficult with e-commerce, right? Because you're dealing
Mhm.
with componentry, you're dealing with, if you're in my business, formulations, you're dealing with third-party manufacturing, labels, shipping,
Yes.
boxes. There's a lot of moving
Yes.
parts. The supply chain is very complex. To deliver a service is just more knowledge work, right? It's like you hire some people. It's like
Yes.
a little easier to deliver the
Yes.
product side of a services business. So with e-commerce, I would say when you're starting, simplify your supply chain, which
Yeah.
might mean white labeling, right? I started
Yeah.
as a drop shipper before. This wasn't China didn't exist. There
Yeah.
was no drop shipping from China. It was I'm going to find a bar stool manufacturer in Minnesota and get a CD of all their products and put them on the internet. And when somebody buys one, I'm going to fax the American drop shipper. They're going to ship it out for me. That's
Yeah.
not good though because you're building someone else's brand. I'm going out doing all this
Correct.
work to get a sale, and then
Yeah.
I'm selling someone else's product. So you're better off
Exactly.
find someone at a mom and pop farmer's market, get them to put your label on their jar of cream. boom, now you got a product. So I would say
Mhm.
the key with e-commerce to start is simplify your product, dial in your marketing, your messaging, your support, your all that. And then once you're up and running and getting sales, okay, now let's make our product a little more robust, a little more complex. Let's do our own
Mhm.
boxes. Let's do our own jars. Let's do our own custom formulations. Like
Yeah.
you can really invest on the product side. Look, if you white label a product that is already good, you know you have a good product.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about e-commerce is that the best product doesn't win in the marketplace. The best promise wins. Whoever makes the best promise wins. Now, your product has to live up to the promise that you made. So if you have a bad product, you're never going to be successful. So you kind of need both, but you can simplify e-commerce by starting with a simple supply chain.
I learned that the hard way. I won't tell the whole story, but when I was starting in e-commerce 7 years ago, we decided to go to market with an entire product line of custom products versus one, and white labeling it and simplifying. And so we very much learned that the hard way. So I can echo everything that you're saying there 1,000%.
Well, I mean, and it goes to show
Yeah.
what a good person you are because you wanted the best and you wanted the
Yeah.
whole thing. So it was not like it wasn't necessarily bad. It just makes it more difficult.
Yeah. The intent was good, but I very much learned how important it is to kind of get that one leading product and to dial it in and to get it scalable. And it's so interesting because it's when we break our own rules, right? Like I teach people how to build 7 and 8 figure businesses, and we're like, constantly every single day we're like, simplicity scales, complexity kills, simplicity scales, complexity kills. And as soon as you do that for yourself, you learn the hard way when you break your own rule. Now I do have a question. How much do you think, when you look at the success of e-commerce brands today, are you finding that it's more about dialing in their Amazon advertising, their advertising across other social media platforms, SEO? Obviously, it's a combination of so many different things. But again, let's say you're talking to someone who wants to break into this field. What would be the
It,
guidance that you would give them?
it's a little different than what I would have said a few years ago. But what I would
Mm-hmm.
say now is start on Amazon because
Mm-hmm.
52 cents out of every dollar spent in America is spent on Amazon. There's people
Mm-hmm.
like my wife who have Amazon Prime and they just click the button and which
Yeah.
I'm first of all very supportive of. I want her to shop and get everything that she wants and set our house up in a good way and set herself up in a good way and our future baby and all that. So this isn't meant to be a sort of that's not a negative value judgment on her as a consumer, but she's like many people where
Yeah.
she's got the Amazon app and it's really easy and just click, 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 and she gets what she needs. And so it's just so that the customer is already there. You don't have
Yeah.
to go find them.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
the downside of it is Amazon takes a bunch of your profit. There's a whole bunch of competition, so on and so forth. But still, even with all of that, it's easier to make your first sale on Amazon than it is because Amazon is both your website and your traffic source.
Yeah.
Outside of Amazon, you got to build your website on Shopify. You got to set it up properly. You got to optimize your sales page. You got to optimize your home page. You got to optimize your collection page. You got to make sure your shopping cart works. You got to connect the merchant account. You got to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, now you're ready to take money. Now you got to go drive people from Facebook, drive people from TikTok, drive people from Instagram, spend money on ads. It's way more complex.
Yeah.
Now, it is a better business model overall because you own the customer, you get the
Yeah.
customer data, you got the
For
fan, the
sure.
follower, the email subscriber. It's
For sure.
better, but it's harder. And if you have a brand that's already successful on Amazon, where you're making 10 grand a month on Amazon, okay, great. Now you got some money, some momentum, you can go build your own thing. And so, for example, I'm constantly starting and buying e-commerce businesses, and I love me a good little Amazon business. I just spent 50 grand on a soap business. It's a natural soap company. And it did about 50 grand last year in revenue. I basically paid 1 year revenue for it, which was about 3 years of profit. So it made like 15 grand in profit. I bought it for three multiple. And already in the first year I've owned it, I took it from 50 grand in revenue to 300K in revenue. This isn't money that's going to change your life, but I didn't grow up with money. And I'm
Yeah.
more than happy to have a small little business that I can grow from 50K to a couple hundred to maybe a million and then sell it.
Yeah.
It's like I can pay for my mom for a few years of her
Yeah.
life with that little project. So I think there's a lot of opportunity on Amazon right now. I think it's easier actually to get sales on Amazon than it is through social media right now,
Yeah.
especially with Facebook being so difficult. And I tend to push people in that direction these days.
Yeah, yeah. I was interested to see what your perspective was on that. And that's what I would expect, just given the landscape of today and how much of commerce has moved to Amazon. I mean, obviously there's a lot of downsides, but to get started and to get off the ground and get, profitable, and then you can always build your business direct to consumer afterwards, but obviously we know what that entails, right?
And
So,
Amazon is just eating the world. I mean, they're growing.
yeah.
The pace at which they're growing is so crazy. It's like I'm not a stock investor. Like all my money is invested in businesses that I mean, yes, I have a 401k and I've got some investments, whatever, but it's like I don't actively pay attention to stock, but I have
Yeah.
over the years been like, hey, maybe I should buy some Shopify stock because I know the company's going to do well. Hey, maybe I should buy some Amazon stock. And I always be like, I should have done that. Like I should have bought
Yeah.
the stock in the companies
Yeah.
that I know we're going to do well, you know?
Now, talk to me a little bit about books. I don't know if that's a world that your customers play in. Is that a world that you play in as far as advertising and scaling book sales from an e-commerce
Yeah.
perspective?
So I own a company called Smart Marketer. And Smart Marketer, it's an information publishing brand that is built on the persona of myself and my CEO, Molly Pittman. And
Hmm.
we sell digitally delivered courses on Facebook, email marketing, social media, et cetera. We have masterminds, we do events, we have an agency. And our
Hmm.
agency, we run ads and we do email marketing for brands and clients. And we do a lot of marketing for famous influencers who have books,
Hmm.
speakers, coaches, authors, people who've been on Oprah, all that kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
what's interesting about book marketing right now is, and this will come as no surprise to you, but the lead magnet really is what it's all about, is generating the lead and engaging someone with a small piece of content, a challenge,
Hmm.
checklist. It's like whatever it is that gets the lead and delivers a little bit of like your best stuff. If you were to introduce someone to Ezra Firestone, you would tell them, I'm now talking about myself in third person, which is really weird, but what you would tell them is he believes in serve the world unselfishly and profit. That's my motto. That's my tagline. You
Yeah.
hear me anywhere. That's what I'm talking about. I think that's a description of how it works. I think when you are in a role of service, unselfishly, you profit, and here's how that looks. And so that's kind of, I would be, if you're opting in for my stuff, I'm leading with that because that's my sort of unique viewpoint on how business works. And then I've got a bunch of stuff that follows with that. But like, whatever that is for you, that's how you market your book. You don't market the book. You market
Hmm.
the whatever the quick little hit of your best stuff is, and then those leads are the ones you sell the book to.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's really smart. And it's a different perspective. We've used my books a lot, like high ticket service based businesses. So we've used the book as the first step from a digital download perspective and then brought people into consultations or into funnels or into, launches and that type of thing. And it's been really, really effective from a client generation standpoint. But I love what you just shared
Yeah,
from the
maybe the first
standpoint
chapter.
of like how are you actually getting them from a content to a book sale. I've never heard anyone share that particular perspective, and that's really amazing
Yeah.
because I know we have so many authors that are listening to the show right now that would love to open up new strategies for actually selling their book once the book launch is done and over. Is there anything else that you would want to share around that particular arena
I
for people
mean,
listening today?
opt in to get the first chapter, right?
Hmm.
Upsell to the digitally delivered book or the physical book. And then yeah, those leads are the ones obviously you want to, go up the ladder and sell them
Yeah.
your higher ticket stuff. But it's like to go from you don't know me to $500 or $1,000 or whatever, it's kind of hard. To go from you don't know me
Hmm.
to, ooh, check out this interesting chapter of my book to okay, hey, it's $20 for the book to, it's sort of what we have found actually. I have one client right now who pays me 150 grand a month to do their services for them. It's a very, very, very large company. We run their ads. That person, someone in their company bought a $7 download from us a few years ago. And
Yeah.
now they're a $150,000 a month client, which is it's the biggest client we have. It's a crazy, crazy client. But it's just like mind blowing to me. It's like we got that lead on a $7 download.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's unbelievable. I think it's really interesting because we are in a market and we are in a space with online marketing where people want to experience you on a smaller scale, but you absolutely cannot discount the people that make those small incremental purchases because a lot of times they are qualified buyers. They're just kind of like vetting the brand. They're just seeing whether or not they like what you're all about, who you are, do the values match, whatever the case. So I love that you shared that. And I think that's really relevant for all online marketers today, whether they're dealing with product or, high ticket service businesses.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. So for you, you have all these companies, you've been traveling around the world speaking, you're teaching about the people over profits and the mentality. What is it that you're most like looking forward to, or kind of the biggest thing that you're focused on right now as far as where you see yourself progressing forward from here?
So I sold my main company, 70% of it, to a private equity firm for a
Hmm.
very high eight-figure sum about 3 years ago. And I
Hmm.
worked with that private equity firm for the last 3 years, and it was really wonderful. I'm a self-made, do-it-yourself, hire all your
Yeah.
cousins, like
Yeah.
not like a
Yeah.
corporate,
Yeah.
I'm not a corporate person, but to learn that world was really fun and
Yeah.
beautiful. And as of January of this year, I hired a CEO for that company. So now I no
Mhm.
longer am the CEO of any of my companies, which has been
Mm.
I kind of went from driving the car to navigating the ship.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
been really wonderful. And I have a daughter who died. This is her. She's a sweet little muffin. She passed away about a year, almost a year ago to the day, and her life kind of really changed me. Her life was oddly not a tragedy. It was a love story, and she really did leave my wife and I in better shape than she found us, which is strange to say, but it is what happened. And so we started a foundation in her name to help other families who have premature babies who have are medically complex. And thankfully we had money, right? I could
Mhm.
stop working and just be at the hospital all day, every day for a year. We could hire all of our friends and family and build a hospital in our house and give her the opportunity to come home. We didn't have to worry about not being able to be by her side. And what's interesting about these neonatal intensive care units is, there's 100 babies. They're all sick, extremely sick. Some of them are extremely medically complex. Like our daughter was born at 1 pound 11 ounces, and look at how far she made it. It was pretty amazing. But
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
the parents can't be there. So you're making decisions, life or death decisions about your child's future on the phone with a doctor who you've never met. And the doctors I'm not anti the medical system, by the way. We are so grateful for the doctors and nurses, but they have an agenda, which is treat. And
Yeah.
so what we're up to is supporting families and being able to be there, moms in particular, with their children. Because what happens
Yes.
is their babies are alone. They're crying. They're by themselves. The
Oh,
nurses are doing the best they can, but the babies that have parents by their side do way better
yeah.
than the
Oh,
babies who
yeah.
are alone. And so that's
Yeah.
kind of my core mission right now. It's called Love Runneth Over. There's a little
Um,
website, and that's sort of what I'm trying to put more attention on. And I'm still doing my businesses, and I'm happy about all that, but I'm not
yeah.
actively sort of running them
Yeah.
in the same way that I was.
No, that's incredible. And thank you so much for sharing that, because I think, we have a lot of business leaders that are listening to the show that have this vision down the road of wanting to be able to do more philanthropic work like what you're doing, and they're still in it. Right. And they're still trying to cross that bridge to go from the point of being the business to running the business to, getting the right leadership in place for the business, and then ultimately being more of like an investor in the business. So I know we're running short on time, but if you want to just maybe share like one or two insights around that process for you, because that's the exact journey that the people listening to the show are on.
Yeah.
And what an inspiration that you were able to be there for your daughter in that way and have that experience, and now to gift that to other people. Like that's unbelievable.
Thank you. Yeah, and it started for me really early. I built a virtual team because I
Mhm.
wanted to be able to be at home with my wife. I don't want to go into
Yeah.
an office.
Yeah.
So and
Yeah.
then when COVID came around, so we started building our virtual team in like 2010. COVID came around, we were experts at this,
Yeah.
and so it really supported us. And I think the key is one thing you could implement is what I call top level Tuesday, because as entrepreneurs, we are so focused on what's right in front of us. We're trying to solve the problem today, tomorrow, next month,
Yeah.
this year, this quarter. And it's like once a week on Tuesday, no calls first half of the day. No,
Yeah.
you with a pen and paper, you're not in front of your computer, you don't have your phone.
Yeah.
No stimulation coming in, no input,
Yeah.
only output. And it
Yeah.
is creative thinking about, well, where am I trying to go 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line? Because the secret in business, I'm now 37. I started when I was 18, so I'm 19 years in. And only in the last 6 years do I have multiple eight-figure businesses, one nine-figure business. It took me 15 years,
Yeah.
right, to get the momentum
Yeah.
to that point. The sort of weird little thing is it's actually a 10 to 15 year game. It's not a 3 to 5 year
Yeah.
game. Everybody's like, it's not working. I'm like, dude, you're in year three. Okay. I have to
Yes.
stay with
Thank
it.
you.
You're willing to stay with
Yes.
it and show up with a positive attitude and do your best and contribute a little bit more every day. And you can do that for a decade. I don't care what it is, you'll
Yeah.
be successful. The problem is people quit before the miracle. And so you
I
just
say
can't
that.
do that. And you
Oh,
have to also keep attention on where you're going, which if you don't set aside a half a day once a week or every 2 weeks, you'll just get confused and you won't remember
yeah.
what the big picture goal is. And so
It's
you
so
could
true.
implement that one thing, which is I'm taking time. I am treating the big picture vision of this as important as my daily work because it is my daily work. And I'm looking at my 10 and 15-year plan once a week and I'm making sure everything's in alignment with that. And it's like, what relationships would I really like to have? Okay. It's like you're just doing that mental sort of call it manifestation, but that
Yeah.
vision, strategy, manifesting, thinking. And dude, I mean, I don't know if dude's a gender neutral term. I apologize if you don't like being called dude, but it works.
I love that. And thank you so much for saying that. And we talk about that sentiment on the show so much, but to hear it from someone who's made it to that 9-figure level and done it with multiple companies and now is kind of experiencing the full circle of being able to really focus on giving back. Like that's the reason and the purpose for it all. And so thanks for modeling that for everyone on the show that's listening and for sharing that journey today. Thank you for everything that you shared today, from e-commerce to selling your books to strategy around people to leadership and giving back and family and everything in between. Where would we best invite people to go next to connect with you, to learn more, to be a part of your world?
Check out smartmarketer.com, SMART marketer.com. There's all my stuff is there. It's our blog. We have courses. We got all that. And then check out Love Runneth Over, like my cup runneth over, but loverunnethover.com. If you want to hear about Audra's story, my wife wrote a really beautiful
Yeah.
sort of story of her life. It's at the bottom of the page. It says Audra's eulogy. You can read that.
Yeah.
I'm biased, but I think it's a really beautiful story.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing. Thanks for all of your beautiful work in the world. Everyone definitely connect with Ezra and check out the foundation and what you can do to support it and be a part of it. Thanks for coming on the show today. Just invaluable conversation. Excited to have you here.
Thank you.